Um, Welcome everyone to the 8th ENLIGHT Arqus webinar on open science. I have the pleasure to have here with us Alan Keflek from University of Bordeaux, and he is going to present a webinar titled Peer Community in a Free and Transparent Initiative for Preprint and Peer Reviewing. Alan, if you want to present, um, you can go ahead. And I'm just going to remind everyone to, if you want, fill in the Mentimeter questions, and then we'll have a discussion later on.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. I will start sharing my screen now.
Yes.
So yeah, I will present you the peer community in initiative. So you can already go on the website of the initiative if you want. It's a free and transparent initiative for preprint peer reviewing. So we base ourselves on this very simple sentence, which is by the John Tennant, that open science is just good science. So what do we need for good science? So we think that we need it to be open, free, peer-reviewed, and reproducible. So as you probably know, the current system is mainly based on paywalls journals. So readers are paying to read the scientific publications. There is also the open access movement, and a lot of this open access is based on authors paying fees to have their publication published and freely accessible for readers. And there are also a lot of journals which are still in the hybrid version. So everyone is paying here, both authors and readers and universities, etc. And in this world, there are also diamond journals, which are more or less developed depending on the different scientific domains, depending also of the different continents. For example, it's much more developed in South America. And with this system, the current system, every scientific paper which is published costs approximately 3,000 euros. So if you just take the number of published paper every year and you divide it by the cost of the academic publishing worldwide, it's the result is approximately 3,000 euros only for the publication system, of course, not for paying the scientists, paying for the infrastructure, paying for the science to be done, only for publishing. You also probably know that a lot of these papers are published in very few commercial publishers, and more than 50% of the papers are published in only 5 different publishers. So there's a lack of diversity here, clearly. The costs are extremely high. As you can see on the left of this slide, the profit of these big commercial companies are very high. You can see that they are much higher than even Amazon, Apple, banks, etc. And the costs are rising every year, and they are rising much more than the inflation. And you can see an example that I like to take, especially when I make this kind of presentation in France. The benefits of the group that owns Elsevier, and Elsevier is largely the main company in the group. The benefits only of this group is the CNRS annual budget, including all the salaries of 30,000 people, all the expenditures of furniture, etc. The rising of these costs of these prices is of course a problem for universities and research organisms. And for example, the University of Liège, they calculated that only the rise of the cost are um, preventing them for recruiting 3 people every year. One of the new ways to publish research, which can really help to make it more accessible, is the use of preprints. So in a lot of scientific domains, sorry, in a lot of scientific domains, the preprints have been rising only for a few years, and we heard about them a lot during the COVID crisis. And you can see that there has been a big rise in the use of preprints in the biomedical world, in the biology, ecology, evolution world. And you can see it by the rise of the bioRxiv preprint server. And I put on the right of the slide some other servers which are well known to host preprints. So there are different studies about preprints, and people have heard of issues of preprints and also good things from preprints. And of course, it's very quick to publish, but not all the scientific fields need a quick publication. It offers open licenses. You can receive feedback from researchers. It's of course very low cost, and since now it is very widespread, almost all journals accept the submission of papers which are already online as preprints. And of course, for the researchers and also for the public, it's free access to the scientific work, but there is a lack of verification on most of the preprint servers. By using the preprint, the costs are only something around 10 euros for each paper, because it's only the matter of putting a PDF on a web server. But the main issue with preprint is that they lack peer review. And that's where the peer community initiative comes. So it has been created by researchers in the south of France, in ENLIGHT, which is a research organism about environment and agronomy. And they created the first peer community which was evolutionary biology, because it's their specific field. And after, they are close to ecology researchers, so the second PCI was ecology, etc. So it's creating like this different communities of researchers, and their goal is to evaluate preprints. So now there are 20 different PCI. So you can see here that it's pretty varied, pretty diverse, sorry. And it's mainly about biological sciences in general, but now it's also integrating humanities. You can see psychology, organizational studies, and next month or this month there will be a new one, which is a PCI plants. And the goal is also to create still a new PCI for different domains. So if you want to create a new PCI, here are the different steps. But of course, the easiest way is to have discussions with the founders of PCI, and you can directly send an email and discuss with them, and try to create a new PCI in your domain if you're interested. So PCI is completely free for authors and readers. There are no APCs, no paywall, no delay, no subscription. It's completely free. So that for one of the goal of good science, we're already okay. But how does it work? So the main thing is, first, the authors need to go to a preprint server. So they can go to any preprint server that they want, and they will put their manuscript as a version 1 on this preprint server. They will also need to put their data, raw data, their scripts, codes, etc., on a specific repository. If it's a Zenodo, for example, you can put in the same deposit the preprint, the manuscript, and also the data, the script, etc. So all this must be already online before you go. Sorry. So there is also some preprint servers that accept direct submission. It means that when you upload your preprint on bioRxiv, for example, you can directly click from bioRxiv to go directly to PCI. So if if authors don't use this kind of server which has an automatic link to PCI, they simply go to the PCI website and they submit their manuscript very simply. It's not a manuscript where you put your text and after you put each figure separately, each table, etc., which takes forever. You just submit the DOI or the URL of the preprint on the preprint server. At this time, of course, there is a managing board for each different PCI. So the managing board will check the scope of the paper, if it's a really academic level of research, etc. And so sometimes the paper will simply not be considered. But most of the time, the paper will be validating. And so people that we call recommender, which has the same role as associate editor in standard journals. So we call them recommender. And so a recommender will decide to handle a preprint. The authors, when they go to our website, they can also suggest recommenders because of course they know who are the recommenders in a PCI, and they can select the recommenders who are the closest to their own research domain. So the recommender will have the role to invite reviewers. So being the recommender is not being the reviewer, it's being the editor. So the recommender will invite reviewers. He can invite reviewers from the list of people already registered on the PCI, or he can invite anyone just with the email of the people. The reviewers will do the peer review job. And so with this, the recommender will have to make an editorial decision. So he can reject the paper, but most of the time, of course, he will ask for revision by the authors. So the authors can make the revision, put the version 2 on the preprint server. So that's also the good thing with preprint server is that most of them allow versioning. So you can keep the same DOI and put the version 1, version 2, version 3 of your paper. And so after 1 or 2 or 3 rounds of review, if necessary, the preprint will be recommended. So at this time, authors can put their recommended preprint on the preprint server. And the recommender will write a short text, which is explaining why the paper is interesting to the community, why it's useful for the research, etc. And this text plus all the peer review process will be published on our website. So the PCI do not publish the paper. PCI publish the recommendation. You can see here an example. So this is what we publish at PCI. We publish the text you can see on the right with references, etc. And below that, everyone can read the reviews, the editorial decisions that were taken during the processes of the review, etc. So we can say that we reach here open science with the manuscript, which remains on the preprint server, and so is accessible to everyone, and also open evaluation, open peer review, since we publish the evaluation process of the manuscript. So PCI also imposes open data and open code. So it helps, of course, to be more reproducible, more transparent. And PCI also proposes to use registered reports. So with this, we think that we are we reach the reproducibility at its maximum. So far, the first PCI was created in 2017. And you can see that there has been a rise of the submissions and also thanks to the creation of new PCI, etc. With this process, of course, it's a bit less cheap than only putting a preprint on a preprint server, because it takes a website, it takes time, etc., to make the evaluation. And so far, it has been evaluated that the cost of a recommended preprint is something around 150 euros, to be compared with the 3,000 I told you about at the beginning of this presentation. The peer community in system is supported by many institutions, as you can see here. So these institutions, mainly the INRAE, the CNRS, and are the main founders of the system, because of course everything costs time of researchers and also web servers, etc. So all this process has a cost. But this cost is supported by these many institutions, which are a lot of universities from France, but also from all over Europe and all over the world. And you can see here the number of institutional supports that also rise rapidly. So I told you about registered reports. So maybe some of you are not used to this vocabulary. So registered reports are a system of peer reviewing in two steps. So as you can see here, there are different steps in the ways of creating a scientific paper. And in this process, you have two different reviews. The first stage of review is before you collect and analyze the data. So in fact, you submit a first version of your manuscript, which is mainly the introduction and the methods and material and methods. And at this time, you already have reviews. So before making errors in your process, in your method, etc., you already have advice from other researchers in your domain. And after you make the research itself, and you submit again the final manuscript, and the same reviewers will assess if you followed or not exactly what you said you would do, etc. So the goal of these is to have much more reproducibility, to have a more transparent process, and also to help to have more credible publications, because in this process, none of these things matter. So the hypothesis, you make the hypothesis first, and the hypothesis is already reviewed before you write all the paper. So we know that there are problems in science where people are just making a lot of experiments and they are just publishing everything that is under the statistical test. And things like this are avoided thanks to registered reports. So the PCI registered report has been created by a psychologist, very well known in the domain of registered reports, and they managed to have a lot of journals in psychology that allows researchers to submit and they advise researchers in their domain to submit the registered reports to PCI registered reports. So PCI registered reports does the review process, and after the author, they just submit to any of these journals here, and the journal will automatically accept the paper because it has been already peer reviewed by the PCI registered reports. So I will now talk a bit about the peer community journal, which is a Diamond open access journal. So I told you that at the end of the process of a PCI, the manuscript remains on the preprint server. It has been validated and recommended, but it is still a preprint. And we know that a lot of authors need to have their paper published officially with impact factor, with quartiles and things like this. So after the paper is recommended, authors can choose to do whatever they want with their manuscript. It is not officially published, so you can still publish it in a journal. So one of the ways to do it is to go directly to the peer community journal, which has been created in 2021. I will speak a bit about it later. But we also have PCI-friendly journals. So there are journals which we have contacted, and they accept to receive recommended preprints as new submissions. And some of them will automatically publish the paper without adding further peer review. Some of them, they will have a quick look at the preprint and they will quickly answer to the authors if they will send it to a new round of peer review or not. And of course, you can still submit to any journal, which is PCI friendly or not, because your paper is not published, it's just recommended and it's still a preprint. So you can submit to any journal you want. So the PCI recommendation is already something that could be kept as is. As you can see, we also have contacts with preprint servers to directly show to everyone that the manuscript is not a standard preprint, it is a recommended preprint. So you can see here on the HAL server, which is the French server to put all the bibliography of a CNRS researcher, for example. There is also a link with bioRxiv. So bioRxiv is now putting a sentence, as you can see below the list of authors. So before it was only this is a preprint, it has not been peer reviewed, and now there is a new sentence when the preprint has been peer reviewed. And also you can directly find the peer review process that has been followed by the manuscript. So one of the journal in which it is easiest to publish after a recommendation by any peer community is the peer community journal. So this journal will automatically accept any recommended preprint. So since we currently have 19 working PCI, there are 19 sections in the journal. Every paper is published under the CC BY license. And you can see on the left an example of the first page of this of the PDF that is created. You can see on the right, for example, a list of the papers that are published in the archaeology section. All this manuscript and the journal is indexed in most of the databases. So we know that in a lot of countries, it is very important for the CV of researchers, for the young researchers in particular, but also for the fundings, for receiving grants, etc. It's important to be that the journal are indexed in a Scopus, in Clarivate Web of Science, etc. So this journal is indexed almost everywhere. And you can see that it's working pretty well. So in 2023, for example, 122 papers were published in the journal, and they are all recommended preprints, which are published officially with DOI, with all the indexation, etc., in the peer community journal. So what can you do to help the peer community in grow? So of course, the best thing would be to submit your next manuscript in the PCI, which is the closest to the domain in which you work. It's also very important to accept to review if contacted. So we know that researchers are contacted every day to review papers, and it takes a lot of time to review properly a paper. And one of our goals is that people accept to review for PCI instead of reviewing for commercial publishers, because it takes a lot of time. Most of you are paid on public funds. And so we think it would be much better to use your time for not-profit initiatives and for open science initiative rather than taking hours to review for Elsevier, Springer, or Taylor and Francis. It's also very important to endorse the initiative by citing and considering valuable the recommended preprints. Of course, we know that the degree of citation of a journal, for example, for PC journal, it's important that the papers are cited so that the journal is recognized by the community. It's also possible to take a bit of time to help us find new supports. If you think that your university, your research organism, the doctoral school in which you are, etc., could support the initiative, it's always great to have new supports, and we can help you with different letters, different texts, etc., to share with boards, with the scientific board or open science board in university, etc. People from the library services, etc., to help us have new supports. It's also, of course, very important to spread the word to your colleagues because, sorry, it takes a lot of time to explain to everyone what is the peer community initiative. And if really in your domain there is no PCI, you can also try to create one. I did it in 2020, and it's for archaeology, and it's working properly now. And it's not it takes time, of course, but it's not impossible at all to create a new PCI, and there are ways to help you. And we have a full process to create a new PCI. So if you're interested and in your domain there is no PCI, maybe you can try to make one. And remember, open science is just good science.